Next question is from Nom Nom Pastrami. For people with a lot of muscle already, how can they lose body fat without tracking calories?
Without tracking calories. All right, here's the deal. And I've worked with, I'd say many of the clients, if not most of them, I would work with, we would not count calories for the most part.
Did he say a lot of body fat or a lot of muscle? A lot of muscle.
In other words, they're trying to say, I already have a lot of muscle, so my metabolism's fast. I think they're probably alluding to what we always talk about, which is build your metabolism type of deal, which that's always part of the strategy. But where I was going is, look for things that encourage behaviors that lead to a leaner body or physique. So here's the easiest one. This one's super easy. If your diet includes processed foods, like most people, I mean, if you're the average American, 70, 80% of your diet is processed foods. But even if your diet is 30% processed foods, if you just cut out the processed food without counting calories, you're probably going to eat less and get leaner. It requires you to count nothing except for, I'm not eating things that come in boxes or wrappers or whatever. It just leads to a behavior where you eat more appropriately. That single thing right there is the most effective single step I've ever done with any client for weight loss. That doesn't include anything.
Oh, well, I don't know. There's a lot of things that you can do to start to lose body fat without tracking calories. I think becoming more present when you're eating. I've talked about that before, where you just don't eat in front of the TV or the phone. You'd be amazed by...
You actually chew all your food?
Yeah, or chewing more, right? Focus actually on the chewing process. Like a lot of people like throw something in their mouth, bite it a couple times and swallow it. Like there was a book that came out one time. It was a fat loss book, and it was like something around like chewing your food 50 times or something. Like it would result in all these people losing weight. So there's lots of strategy. Just getting smaller portion sizes, skipping one meal in the day. There's a lot of things that you can do that doesn't require tracking calories, but changing your behaviors that will result in fat loss, and or avoiding a lot of empty calories, candy, alcohol. You can get rid of a lot of that stuff and get that same result.
To that point, I mean, I just read a study. It was just over like the diners in America where they did some study where basically they switched out the size of their fork to a smaller fork, and people ate way smaller portions as a result of that. It was the most simple thing you could do, but you felt like you gained more from the smaller fork, and so it would just naturally you thought you were satisfied.
Well, and honestly, somebody who that's how I was questioning what they were asking in this, because if you got a lot of muscle mass, I'm assuming that you're alluding to you have a pretty fast metabolism then too. So it's pretty easy for this person. If they get a roaring metabolism, they want to lose body fat and they don't feel like tracking calories, make a few good decisions.
Yeah, in my opinion, behavior modification through the stuff that we're talking about will lead to a pretty good, healthy, lean physique. It will not lead to a shredded physique.
Yeah, not competitive.
Now, if you're trying to get shredded, you're going to have to count and measure things.
And
if you want to get lean and healthy, where most people will look at you and say, "Wow, that person looks pretty good," you for the most part, you don't need to count calories. Now, I'm not saying there's no value in understanding how many calories are in foods and what macros. I think there's value in that, and people should learn that. But most people can get very fit and relatively lean without ever really having to count calories.
The problem with that is that just most people are so unaware. That's the problem. I mean, there's plenty of studies that support that too, that show that I think it's 90-something% of people underestimate their calorie intake. And the ones that think they know. I mean, and I find this all the time with myself. Like, I'm probably around 2,800, and I guesstimate. I'm never on, and I'm pretty damn good at that. I've been doing that for a really long time. So,
well, especially with health foods too. Like people eat salads and and they don't even realize it's like 1,300 calories that they just consume.
Well, I mean, I brought that up a long time ago. I'll never forget the first time that I actually weighed out and measured a sweet potato. Because sweet potatoes aren't really high in calories, and when you look at all the apps or the books that break down the nutrients in it, it's a relatively very healthy, low calorie type of food. But they grow in very different sizes.
Yeah.
And when they say like a small, medium, or regular or large in the book, it's very different than a lot of times what you get at a grocery store.
Yeah, let's just try and average it out.
Yeah, and what you can find is it could be,
they're gigantic.
Yeah, I found I was like 300 calories off on one.
Wow.
You know, so that's a
I remember I did that with chicken breast, and it said 6 ounces, and I'm like, oh, medium or small chicken breast, and I put, and like, this is like, where'd they get this from? A dinosaur? It's from bananas.
Yeah.
You ever
It's a
one
yolk
medium
chicken.
banana? A medium banana is like that big. Like, where do you find that size?
yeah.
of
They
a
don't
banana?
make it, and you would think that's a small banana.
Yeah,
right?
I would think that's a tiny banana.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and here's the thing too. Like when people ask questions like this, if you're trying to get to that destination, like so you have a goal in mind, right? Nothing will be faster than tracking too, because you'll be more precise. The way we're talking about is more long term.
Yes.
And what's healthier long term as far as your relationship with exercise and food by doing that, by doing what you're saying. By addressing all the behavior things, this is a great way for a long, healthy lifestyle and good relationship.
Yeah.
You also have to look at it like as work. Like, so if you are disciplined with your exercise, why wouldn't you apply that same discipline towards learning, specifically about tracking calories? And so, like that way you have something that you can then go off course with.
And a lot of people have no idea. Like they know from what they hear in media. So for example, I'll have a family member that's like, beans are really high in protein. So is peanuts. Like, not really. I mean, they're high for a plant source, but do you know how many peanuts you'd have to eat to equal the same amount of protein you'll find in 6 ounces of chicken, or how many beans? Like, but it says high protein. When I look at it, it's 6 grams. 6 grams. Yeah, it's high protein for a plant, but in comparison to other sources, it's not high protein.
Well, and back to a Justin point, because I think it's a very good, valid point. I mean, I feel the same way about exercise. The ultimate goal of both exercise or training, right, and nutrition is to get intuitive training and intuitive eating. I mean, that's
we all want to get there.
That's the pinnacle, in my opinion, is to get to a place where you know your body well enough, exercise well enough, or programming well enough that you can always maintain a very fit, healthy physique forever.
Off a feel.
Yeah, off a feel, right? And knowing, right? And even if you're outside those boundaries, you're outside those boundaries. And the same thing goes for nutrition, like that you have the ability to feel, I'm eating about where I should be. Even if you are sometimes outside the boundaries, I'm aware.
Right.
I'm aware I'm eating this ice cream and I'm going beyond or outside of what I probably should be doing, but you're aware of that. And personally, I just think that most people need to track both those things to figure that out, or learn both.
They need a guideline first before they go off.
Yes.
You gotta learn
on
how
their
to,
own.
what is it, crawl before you walk?
Yeah, crawl before you walk.